Eliyahu Shear from www.lovingkindness.co. Chesed Ve'emet is the name of our organization. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a very beautiful teaching from the Torah in this week's Parshat Behar. Now, in Chutz La'aretz, outside of the land of Israel, everybody is still one parsha behind us. We're already on Parshat Behar, and that is because Pesach this year fell out with the last day, the 8th day of Pesach fell out on Shabbos outside in the diaspora, whereas Israel had already finished Pesach on the Friday, which was the 7th day of Pesach. Outside of Israel, they were still celebrating Pesach on Shabbos, and therefore we began, while we were already reading the parsha for that week, outside the land, they were only still with Pesach reading the parsha that we read on Shabbos the next week, which means that at this point in time, outside in the diaspora, everybody is still 1 week behind us. But we're reading Parshat Behar, and in Parshat Behar, there's a very beautiful verse, perhaps one of my favorites, because I think it's so sensitive to who we are as people, and we neglect sometimes to see the beauty of this verse, or perhaps it's just a lack of interest, or perhaps it's because we don't pay attention to what the verse is saying. So we're going to read this verse together because I want everybody to see the beauty of this verse. And after we've read it, we're going to see exactly what Rashi, the commentary, tells us is the actual meaning of the pasuk, of this verse. And after we read Rashi, we're going to read two very beautiful midrashim, which teach us a little bit more about the beauty of this verse and this particular concept that we're going to be learning about. And I want to point out over here that we're talking about the area of charity. And charity, of course, is something which everybody knows about. When I was growing up, we used to have this thing that whenever we went to the store or something, there might be somebody sitting in a wheelchair, God forbid, and he was collecting money, and he'd have a charity box on him, and he'd be sitting in this wheelchair, and apparently he wasn't able to do anything in his life, unfortunately, and he was just asking people for help. So we would go by and we would drop 10 cents. I'm from South Africa, and we would drop 10 cents or 20 cents into the charity box, which at that time, although wasn't really a significant amount of money, was certainly even more than what it's considered, of course, today. So we dropped the 10 cents or the 20 cents into the box, and immediately this person who was sitting there, who was responsible for an organization, he was part of an organization, would give us a sticker. And we'd stick the sticker onto our shirts, and of course, I personally would walk around the entire day with the sticker on, feeling wonderful that I'd fulfilled this mitzvah of charity. At that time, I didn't really know what the mitzvah of charity was all about, but I was taught that if you see somebody in need, you give them something, whatever it is that you can, give it to them, and give it to them with a happy face. And then, of course, you get this return of the sticker, and you feel wonderful about things. Well, this, of course, is the essential mitzvah of charity, that we must take care of each other, no matter what the circumstances are. The interesting point about the mitzvah of charity is that many times people feel that they are exempt from the mitzvah of charity. They feel that if they see a person who is lacking, that it's their fault. It's the person's fault. Why are you lacking this money? You might say to the person. Don't you have a job? You'll say to them. And the person will say, well, I've been trying to get work, but I haven't been successful. And they'll say, well, go and get any job. Sweep the streets if you have to, or do anything that you can in order to make an income. So the poor fellow, of course, is left out in the open once again in the exact same position that he was 5 minutes ago. And even worse so, he feels insulted because not only is it that he doesn't have a job and he doesn't have any money, but in addition to this, he's been insulted by somebody, and he feels even worse that maybe he can't get on with his life. Well, none of us really know the reason why somebody doesn't have wealth. Perhaps the person never went to university, some people say. He should get a proper education. And of course, we know in society today that people with PhDs and great degrees of all sorts of kinds, that they are all successful. Everybody knows that. Once a person gets a degree, he's a great success. And we also know in life that people who don't have degrees are all failures. Well, if you believe that, then you're living in another world. Because the reality is that in today's times we see that people without any degrees whatsoever become multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires. And people with the finest degrees possible often end up on the streets. Many people make aliyah. They come to the land of Israel, and they come as doctors. And when they arrive here, perhaps without the knowledge of the Hebrew language, for example, or perhaps they're already older in years, they find themselves stuck, unable to get a job. And they're doctors, and they're highly qualified. And they find somebody far younger than they are, taking over various jobs, becoming great successes, and with all the experience that they have, they cannot get a job. So this fellow knocks on the door of somebody and he says, please, can you help me with a pruta? Please, can you give me 10 agarot? Chatzi shekel, half a shekel, please help me. And the door is slammed in their face. They say to them, get a job. Why did you go to university? And of course, they know nothing at all about the real life of the person who's standing in front of him. Well, this week's Parsha tackles this issue head on, and it makes no excuses, it makes no compromises, it has no mercy, in fact, on the person who cannot value, to appreciate the difficulty of another person suffering because they don't have money to live. I have a saying in my own life that I say many times to people. We live in a generation where the slightest thing can cause a person to give up on life, God forbid. And we have many problems in life. They range from emotional problems, mental problems, physical problems, financial problems. Any of these things can cause a person to lose track of how to cope with life and give up completely. And my saying is that I know that things are difficult when it comes to emotions. And sometimes there are relationships and things that go on in life that are so difficult to deal with that people feel that they have to give up on life, God forbid. And how do you deal with such a situation? It's not easy. A person is suffering in some way, and it's almost impossible to relate to their situation, unless, of course, we ourselves have experienced it. And even if we have experienced it, we still might not be able to relate exactly to what this person is going through. And if they give up on life, we can only turn around and feel really sad and as if we've lost out on somebody who had the ability to give something to the world, and we've lost out on that. How were we able to help that person who went through that tremendous difficulty, that emotional difficulty? It's almost impossible to relate to. But think about this for a second. What about a person who's giving up on life because he has no money to live? Now, emotions are a tough thing to deal with. If a person is suffering emotionally and we can't relate to it, we can't grasp what they're going through, we can never really hold on to them and try and bring them out of their difficulty, because it's a journey that they themselves are going to have to bring themselves out of. But a person who is suffering from finances, he doesn't have money to live. And that is the reason that he considers leaving this world on his own account. Never should a person have to feel in this world that he has to give up on life because he lacks money. Money there is in the world, plenty of. There are billionaires in the world like there have never been in the world before. And there are multi-millionaires with hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds, euros, and even just ordinary millionaires. And then there are just simply wealthy people who might not fit into the category of millionaire wealth, but they're wealthy. So there's a lot of wealth in the world. The wealth can somehow get around. If only people will distribute it in ways that will help people who are lacking life, those people will never have to give up on life. Never should a person have to give up on life, because human beings will not care about him because he needs money to live. That a person gives up on life because he finds himself in physical pain and nobody can help him. So this, people can think in their heads, how can I relate to it? How can I ever help this person? It's a test that the person himself is going through. We hope that they will hold on and they will be successful, and we will be there for them, and we will try to help as much as we can. But how can we ever comprehend that pain? However, when a person is simply lacking money, how can we turn around with excuses to exempt ourselves from helping this person to live. And on that note, I want to point out that when we support another person to live, it does not mean that we give them $1 and say cheerio. And I hope that this helps you in your life. I'm sure you'll be a great success. Well, of course, if 1 million people gave him $1, he'd be doing fine. He'd be okay for a start. But in general, when a person is begging, he's going around door to door asking people, please help. And he spends the entire day going from house to house, and each person gives him 50 cents, maybe $1, maybe a shekel. And he comes home that day and he finds in his wallet he's gathered 20 shekels or 30 shekels. Remember, he cannot live on that money. Today in Israel, if you want a falafel, it's 18 shekels. The minimum wage in Israel is roughly 25 shekels an hour. So roughly speaking, a person is going to be working 1 hour to obtain one meal. That is really a very sad story, because in addition to eating, the person has to pay real expenses, rental expenses, transport expenses, communication expenses. Taxes are heavy. When we look at a person and we give them $1 and we say, well, I'm sure this will take care of your next 5 meals, and will take care of the petrol, the gas in your car, and it will take care of your communication so that you can have a phone, that you can talk to people, and it will take care of your rental and all the fixing that you need to do in the house, maybe when things need to be fixed and everything, and they do it like that, they make a mistake. People need real money in order to live. And the Torah takes this subject very seriously. Throughout the Torah are a number of places where the Torah speaks about the mitzvah of charity. And never does it say to turn down a person. And never does it say to insult a person, God forbid, because he asked for tzedakah, for charity. Never does it say to humiliate a person. Never does it say to ask him personal questions. How old are you? Why don't you have a job? Why don't you have an education? Well, you have an education. Why don't you use it? Well, people will give you jobs. Well, you can get work anywhere. Well, you can get 3 jobs or 4. It's not a problem. And if you have to do without sleep, do without sleep. Work the entire day. Work the night. Just make sure you do everything to live. And any thinking human being who's in a position that he lives his life with food, with drink, with renting an apartment, with owning a car or even taking the bus, with having to pay for his basic fees just to live, not to buy new garments regularly, not to buy any fancy foods, not to go out to restaurants once a week or to have 3 holidays. When a person can think like that, at what the real cost of living is, and a person comes to their door and they say that they're struggling, let us learn to believe that the struggle is a real struggle. The person needs assistance. He doesn't need insult, and he doesn't need small amounts of income that are given to him in a way that make him feel all of the bills that he has to pay for the month have now been paid. Let us also remember another point, that very often somebody who is in need of money will go to a bank. Hopefully the bank will give him a loan. And of course, as we know, banks don't give loans for free. Though the Torah says not to charge interest, no matter where you are in the world, banks do not give loans for free. Which means in addition to this person's need to live, he may find himself in severe debt to a bank, having to pay not just the loan back, but huge amounts of interest. And as the Torah says, speaking about interest, that interest is something like the poison of a snake. That what happens is when the snake bites, everything seems okay. Everything seems like it's just, well, it's not so bad. But slowly the poison enters into the bloodstream, and before long the person cannot breathe, and before long the person cannot cope. This is what interest does to a person. And let us not forget that if we ever do such things to our fellow Jew, that in addition to breaking the commandment of charging interest, we literally destroy this person. Let us learn from the old times as they continue, unfortunately, in today's times, that in the old days, very often Jews were under the rulership of the landlords who used to punish the Jewish people. They used to put them into prisons because they couldn't pay their amounts for their rental. And as a result, the Jewish community would have to get together and try to redeem these captives. Well, why weren't the Jewish people redeeming the captive before the captive got into the situation that he needed to be redeemed? Let us not be in a situation where we are so cruel, so unkind, so uncaring, that all we can think about doing, that when another person asks for help, we say to them, do us a favor, get a job, you can do it, you've got skills, you've got education. Because sometimes people don't want to give that person the job that he needs. And even if he gets the job, it's a minimum wage. And what can he do with it? He can barely pay his taxes and finds that he has enough money to pay for his basic living expenses, to pay for his food, and to pay for his garments, never mind holidays, never mind fancy jets, or homes in different parts of the world that he can own. Never mind homes with 6 toilets, 24 rooms, and a gold basin. Sometimes people can't afford just to simply live. So this week's Parshat Behar brings us a very sharp statement. Listen to these words. I'm pointing to them now on the page that you see in front of you. It says over here, if your brother becomes poor, and he brings out his hand to you. He says, yeah, please, can you help me? And you've got to strengthen him. Give him. Give to the ger, the stranger, the foreigner, the convert, v'toshav, and the one who dwells with you. And let him live together with you. As a Jewish nation, one of the greatest things that we need to think about is living with each other. We're not enemies. We're not supposed to be seeing each other as one person who's wealthy and the other person who has nothing, who is worthless, who is nothing. But he is the brother that is in need. How can we turn him down? Interesting. In Israel today, many people who make aliyah are called by this very term, gerim. They are strangers. When a Jew comes to Israel, and he doesn't know Hebrew, and he doesn't have the ability to get a job perhaps, or he doesn't know what to do to work and to earn an income, he's a ger in that place. He's a stranger. He might not be a ger in the sense of a convert, as the literal translation of the word ger is, but he is a ger in the other concept of what a ger is, as a stranger. He comes to a place where he knows nobody, just like the Jewish people have done throughout the ages when they moved in times of pogroms to different countries that they had to flee to, and they found themselves amongst non-Jews who were unfamiliar with these people and they were unfamiliar with them. And it's understandable almost to think that they were considered strangers to the town. But when a person is a Jew, he comes to the land of Israel, he should not be a ger. He should not be a stranger, but he is a stranger until his children are born there and they grow up as part of the society of Israel. He is considered a stranger amongst other people, even though they are Jewish. And therefore, when he finds himself there asking for assistance, if this person is a real Israeli and is settled into the land, he needs to think about the importance of supporting the ger, as the pasuk over here teaches us. Parshat Behar, we see it over here. Perek Chaf Hey 25, chapter 25, verse 34. When your brother comes and he says, help me, you help him. We help the brother. If he's a stranger, if he's a citizen, it doesn't make a difference. If he's in need of help, we help him. Listen to the words of the commentator Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. He lived in the 12th century and is the greatest of the commentaries that we learn on Chumash, because his commentary is so easy to follow and brings us to understand the simple meaning of the text. And Rashi says the following. What does it mean, that you should strengthen him? Al tanichehu sheyered v'yipol. Don't ever let your fellow man, your brother, fall so low. V'yeh kashe lakimo, and it will be difficult to lift him up. Don't let him get to that stage where life becomes so hard that it's impossible to lift him up. Ela, but rather, chazkeu mishas motas hayad, strengthen him from the time that he says, please help me. When he says those words, we do not inquire as to his profession and to his age and to how much does he pay for rent on his apartment. Does he own it? Does he rent it? And how many sisters do you have? How many brothers do you have? How many uncles do you have? No. The moment that he stretches out his hand, we give to him. Lema ze domeh. To what is this comparable? Lemasoi she'al hachamor. To the burden that's on a donkey. Or dehu al hachamor. While the burden is upon the donkey. Echad tofes bo uma'amido. One person, just one, can hold on and stand him up. This could mean that he could hold the burden up so that the burden doesn't fall off the donkey. It could also mean he can hold the donkey up because, of course, if the burden falls, then the donkey falls as well. So who is when we speak about the poor person, we could speak about the idea of him being the load, or we could speak about him being the donkey. But whichever way we talk about it, the situation is one of a person who has a load on him, and the load is falling, and he's in need of help. Nafal la'aretz, if it falls onto the ground, meaning either the load falls onto the ground or the donkey falls onto the ground, it makes no difference which one at this point in time. Chamisha en ma'amidin oto. And certainly if it's the donkey that fell, even 5 people won't get it up. Once the donkey is on the ground and the burden is splattered all over the ground, and it's this huge thing that was perfectly stationed on top of the donkey, and everything fell down, then if 5 people come by, they won't get it up again. We tend to think that when a person's asking for help and he looks pretty healthy, things are okay. Look, he put an advert on Facebook. He says he needs help. Look at that. He typed it out just fine. Look how nice the words look. I'm sure he's okay. And we leave him, only to find sometimes something horrific days later. And people ask, what happened? He looked like such a nice guy. He looked healthy. I was looking at his typing. It was beautifully expressed. And the letters were all perfect. And people imagine in their heads that when they see somebody that's asking for help, that he's okay. He's taken care of. Look, he's breathing. He's okay. He's surviving. I don't need to give him. But the Torah says no. The moment that a person says, please help me, we do everything that we can in the best possible way to make a difference in this person's life. No matter who, what, where, we make a change for the good. I briefly take a look, for the sake of completion, at the next 2 verses in this parsha that follow on from this mitzvah of charity, which says, Al tikach me'ito neshek v'tarbit. When you give to this poor person, don't take interest, an increase in the amount that you've given him. Hey, you tell him, I'm going to give you this $5 here, but I want you to know something. I need this money back in 2 days' time, and you've got to pay me an extra $5. That's the deal. God forbid. The Torah says we do not take interest from our fellow Jew. How did the banks do it? Well, this is another story, of course. And we have to consider exactly what is going on altogether. Unfortunately, even in Israel, there is a thing of interest, and to a certain degree, the Jewish people are part of this concept of being involved in interest. And even though there's a heter iska, and even though there is a document that is signed by a rabbinical authority which indicates that the relationship between the person in need who's taking the loan and the bank manager and the bank itself is a relationship of a business kind, in which case the bank and the person are both partners in a business, and the bank is hoping that the person will make a success and be able to pay back profits from the business and their partners. But nevertheless, think about it for a second also on a certain logical level, that if a person has 0 in his account and he's really struggling and he goes into a bank just to survive, so he hopes that he'll make a success. But if he doesn't make a success and he doesn't pay that interest back, the bank is not going to approach him as a partner and say, we're both suffering, we're both going through difficulties. The bank will do everything that it can to obtain the money back. But the Torah is strict and says, at the end of the day, the correct approach is don't take interest. You shall fear God. Look at that again. Let your brother live with you. You're supposed to live together. We as a Jewish people are supposed to live together. We're not supposed to be in a competition with each other. We're not supposed to be that one person is making millions, and when the person approaches this millionaire and says, please help me, and the fellow turns around and says, okay, what's your problem? What's your difficulty? And you see the snarl, you see the anger, the disappointment on this guy's face as he looks at him in total disdain. Who are you to think that you can get by life without working as hard as I did to earn the income that I did? And I must part with my income. Don't give your money away for interest. And don't have to ask for something more when it comes to your giving of food. In other words, anything, any money or anything that you're giving to your fellow Jew is done on the basis of a gift. Of course, the Rambam teaches us different levels of charity. And there are some levels of charity of including a person in your business and giving him a job and all sorts of things to make him feel like he's earning the income and all sorts of things that we can do. We're not speaking about those things. We're speaking about a general situation where a person says, please help me. And I don't even have time to work right now. I'm in such desperation that you put me into a working situation. I've got to work a month and then earn the income. But right now, the bank is about to take all my property, take all my own, whatever it is, my assets. If I don't pay them back, they say, go and work. I'll give you a job for 6 months, and after 6 months you have them. I say, but in any case, the bank will take all my things today. I'm so desperate. Please help me, he says. We help immediately, and we don't charge interest. Says the next verse, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Asher Otzeisiechem Eretz Mitzrayim. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt. Lateit lachem es Eretz Kanani yos lachem leElokim. I took you out of the land of Egypt in order to be your God, to give you these mitzvot, the mitzvot of charity, and all the other mitzvot. We were not taken out of Egypt so that we could go run off on our own tasks, on our own plans, do what we want, and separate. When we were in Egypt, we were all slaves together. We were all being affected together. There was no differences. We all experienced pain. We all suffered together. And as soon as we come out of Egypt, we feel now we can do things on our own. And we can leave our brother alone. And if he's suffering, leave him alone to suffer. But Hashem says, you don't understand. I took you all out of Egypt together. You were in Egypt together, suffering together. Do you remember the suffering together when you had nothing together? And now that some have more than others, suddenly the suffering is forgotten, except by those who don't have, who are still feeling the suffering. And they approach their brother, please help me. And the brother says, I have earned this. You have not. And I am in a better position than you are. But Hashem says no. He says he took us all out of Egypt so that we will be blessed with wealth. And in a certain respect now, we are able to help each other. And Hashem designed the world in this way. He designed the world that some people will have more than others in order for the world to function in a normal manner, so that one person will always give to the other. Because if we live in a world where everybody is taken care of, soon relationships will fall apart. Because nobody will ever talk to anybody. Since everybody has what they want, nobody ever has to talk to anybody. You can sit under your grapevine and you can eat your figs and do what you want and enjoy life under your own tree and never have to talk to another human being again. And Hashem doesn't want that. He wants us to be together and to help each other and to value each other for the good that we're able to achieve in the world. And now, with these thoughts, I take you to my first Midrash, which I would like to share with you. And this appears in Shemot Rabbah. And it's on a similar verse that we're learning now in the Chumash. And that's why I'm saying it over, because this doesn't appear in the section of the Torah that we're reading now in the Midrash. So I'm going back into this particular area, which is discussing the same concept. And listen to these beautiful, beautiful words. Now we're going to be learning some wine of Torah. Now we're going to be learning something very beautiful, something very powerful. And if this cannot make a difference in our lives, then we don't understand how to take the Torah to heart. We don't understand the value of what the Torah is. We don't understand good values in the world. And we have a lot to learn if we cannot understand this. So let's read this together. Says Shemot Rabbah, I'm reading here from chapter 31. I'm reading here paragraph Gimel 3. Davar acher. This is what this following sentence, the pasuk in the Torah, means. Im kesef talveh esami. If you're going to lend out money to my nation, which is exactly what we were speaking about now just a few moments ago, that money has to be lent out without having to ask for interest. The fellow needs a car. He needs to travel. If he goes to the bank and he gets this car, it costs him 50,000 shekel, costs him 100,000 shekel. He needs a car. He needs to travel. He needs to be safe. He buys himself a car. It costs 100,000 shekel. He feels safe in it. It's got a nice GPS. And he can find his way if he gets lost, and he won't find himself in trouble and all sorts of things. He needs what he needs. Whatever it is, he needs a truck because he has loads of things that he needs to carry. Whatever it is, it's a small car, it's a big car. He needs what he needs. Why? Because he needs it. That's why. He could have done with a second-hand jalopy and maybe not made it to his destination because it's only made for short distances. But he needed a better car to get to a better destination. It costs 100,000 shekels. He goes to the bank. He asks for a loan. Boom! He's hit with 50,000 shekels interest that he's got to pay off over the next 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. He thinks to himself, I can barely pay for the car. How will I pay for the 50,000 shekels extra as well? So the Torah says, listen, if somebody comes to you and you have the means, give him the 100,000 shekels. Let him buy a car and help him to be a success and to eventually, hopefully, make it on his own. Give him the car. Lend him the money and give him the opportunity to pay it back. But don't charge him interest. That we're not allowed to do. This is what's written in a pasuk in Koheles, in the book of Ecclesiastes, written by the wisest of all men, King Solomon. Here we see at Perek Hey, Pasuk Yud Beis, look what it says. Yesh ra'achoyle ra'isi tachas ha'shamesh, says Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon says, I saw a terrible evil under the sun. This is the evil that I saw when I looked at the world, says King Solomon. I saw this terrible thing. You think it's murder? You think it's rape? You think it's violence? You think it's these things? Shlomo HaMelech says, no, I saw a terrible evil. That there was bad. There was a wealth that's guarded for its owners for his bad. I saw a terrible thing. The thing that I saw is that some people become very wealthy, and it's not for their good. And all the wealth is lost in a bad manner. Happy is the man who can withstand his test. Oh, listen to this beautiful idea. That there is no creation, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not test it. Hashem tests all of creation all the time. From the moment that we wake up in the morning to the moment we go to sleep, and even during our sleep, and all the activities that we do, Hashem is testing us constantly as to how we are going to cope with all sorts of events going on in our lives. With regards to the wealthy man, Hashem tests him to see if his hand will be open to poor people. That's his test. He's wealthy. What's his test? Will he give to the poor man? Then he tests the poor man. Will he be able to accept the afflictions without getting angry? Each of us are going through our own tests. So the wealthy person is being tested, are you going to give to the poor? The poor person's being tested, are you going to be able to cope with the poverty that God says, I'm giving you poverty? How are you going to relate to it without getting angry at me? I know that you'll get angry at me because I can give you everything, says God to us. I can give you anything. I am infinite. I can provide the whole world for you. I can provide universes and galaxies. I can provide anything for you. And I've chosen to withhold giving you the ability to live on a daily basis. How are you going to cope with that? And the wealthy man, he says, don't think you're exempt. You've got your test as well. You think you're taken care of because every month that goes by, $1 million appears into your account. So you're taken care of. You're okay. You've got the job. You've got the money. You've got the interest from the bank. You've got all sorts of things going on in your life that are bringing you income. Life is joyous with all the money coming through for you. And says the Torah, but God is giving you a test. What are you doing with that money? Are you giving it to others? Because that's your role. The poor person has to learn, how do I deal with this pain that God has refused to give me what I need to live? And the wealthy man is given a test every day, although he doesn't acknowledge it necessarily, doesn't believe it necessarily, he cannot even imagine it necessarily. And his test is, are you giving to the poor? Shneimar, as the pasuk says in Yeshaya, v'aniyim merudim tavi bayis. And for the poor person who is suffering, bring him into your home. If you see that somebody's suffering and don't have any money, take him into your home. Do everything that you can to take care of him. V'ima madi ashir, ashir b'nisyono, v'oseh tzedakos. Now, if the wealthy person is able to withstand the test and he can do righteous things, he will be deserving of his money in this world. He's going to get the greatness of this world. He's going to get it. He's going to get the money in this world. It's his. Why? Because he's kind with it. And he helps other people to achieve their goals with the money that God has given him. As the Tanya says, a very beautiful thought. He says, we must always consider to be able to give from our piece of bread to another. Because when he gives to the other a piece of bread, he says, within this piece of bread is also, within my piece of bread, God has placed a part of your piece of bread. Even though I have a piece of bread that applies to me and I could eat the entire piece, I recognize that a part of this bread actually belongs to you. And even though a person gets reward for giving of his money to others in this world, he still gets a great reward in the next world. And Hashem will save him from the judgment of hell, of Gehinnom, because he was kind with his wealth. Like the verse says in Tehillim, Ashrei maskil el dal b'yom ra'ah. Happy, praiseworthy is the person who pays attention to the poor man on his day of bad. Yimaltehu Hashem, and Hashem will save him. And what about the poor person? If the poor person is able to withstand his test and he doesn't kick back, his reward is that he gets double in the future world. That's his reward. The wealthy man gets reward here and he gets reward in the world to come. But it sounds almost like, well, maybe the wealthy man still gets more. He ends up getting good here and there. What about the poor man? The poor man suffers, so he suffers here and he's going to get there. But still, he should get something for his suffering. He gets double in the world to come. Shneimar, like the pasuk says, Ki ata amani toshia. For you, a poor nation, you will be saved. You're going to be saved. You're going to get salvation. Mimi ata lameid. Who do you learn this from? Me'iyov. We learn this from Eov, the man known as Job, who appears in one of the 24 books of the Torah. What happened to him? He was punished in this world for no reason. He didn't do anything wrong. Read the book of Job and you'll see Job did nothing wrong. The Satan accused him and simply said that when God said that here was a special man in the world, Satan said, yeah, he's special because he acts in such a special way to you, does the right things because you give him. But take it away from him and let's see how well he does then. And so God took the things away from him for no other reason than to just test him. He did nothing wrong. V'shilem lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu kiflaim. And Hashem paid him double. Shneimar, like it says, Vayosef Hashem es kol asher le'Iyov le'Mishnah. And Hashem he added to him, for Eov, a double portion. Aval Shear. But regarding the wealthy person, she'eino ra'ah, and his eyes bad, holech hu o mamono min ha'olam hazeh. He and his money will leave this world. Shneimar, like it says, a verse in Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, by the wisest of all men, V'ovad ha'osher rahu be'inyan ra, and that wealth will be lost in a bad way. She'eino ra'ah keneged gaba'et tzedakah, because he has a terrible eye for those who collect tzedakah. There are people in this world, and I'm sorry to say that I've actually seen them, that when they see somebody coming to collect tzedakah, they insult them barabim, publicly. They will stand in front of the person and insult him to no end. And who are the people who are doing the insults? People who God has blessed with wealth, and they don't have to worry about the wealth anymore. And they've retired, and they've got huge amounts of money, and they're doing fine. And somebody walks into the shul and says, please, can I ask for help? Will you help me? And the man will stand, and he will insult in front of everybody. He will shout out, insulting to everybody, this person, and say what a terrible person he is. Why doesn't he get a job? Why does he bother the community? Why does he have to come when we're praying? Why this? Why that? Oh, says the Torah over here, this is a person with a bad eye. Oh, he might look friendly. He might talk friendly to you. He might have all the right words to say and flattery that you could imagine to make you feel good. He might even have a tzedakah box inside the shul. You might even see him putting a shekel or a dollar into the box. And he tells fantastic jokes too. He's such a wonderful guy. But when he sees a person who says, please, can you help me? It is his opportunity to insult. Lama. Why? Shegalgalhu bo'olam. The reason is because there is a water wheel in the world. A wheel in the world. As we're going to see, it's a water wheel. We'll explain it in a moment. There's a wheel that goes on in the world. Lo mishehu ashir hayom ashir lemachar. Because a person who is wealthy today is not necessarily wealthy tomorrow. Umishu oni hayom oni lemachar. And a person who's poor one day is not poor the next day. There are enough stories that we can all hear about. You can watch them on YouTube. Famous stories of people who were poor. They had nothing. People who couldn't get jobs. I went to many interviews. Nobody would give them a job. You're a nothing. You're a rubbish. Look how you dress. You got no education. One excuse after the next. One insult after the next. And the person says, and something came their way somewhere, and they took it and whatever, and they did something. Suddenly everything changed. They became wealthy. They became a millionaire. They became a billionaire. Read the stories. Watch them on YouTube. Amazing stories. And so too there are stories that we can recount of people who have been tremendously wealthy from things that they did. Tremendously. And they lost it all. How did it happen? I used to wonder sometimes, how did it happen? A person is a multi-millionaire. Hundreds and hundreds of times over. And he has no money one day, they say. He lost all his money. How? Well, he put it on the stock exchange one day, and the stock exchange collapsed, and he lost it all. I was like, well, what do you mean? How did that happen? He lost his money. He bought housing in a place that suddenly lost its value, and everything went down. He wasn't able to sell his property. He gambled some of it away, not realizing what he was doing one night, until he didn't realize what he was doing, and he gambled all his money away. There are all sorts of reasons why a person can lose all of his money. Or it could be that, God forbid, a person needs a serious operation. He needs the finest doctors who charge the most money that one could imagine in the world. And all of his money goes just for his health. And he thought he was wealthy. But God can take the money away in all sorts of ways. He can give wealth to the poor man in 1 second. And he can take that wealth away in 1 second. Ella, lazeh morid. This is what God does. He brings the one down. And he brings the other up. Shene'emar, like it says in Tehillim, the book of King David's Psalms, Ki Elokim Shofet, God is the judge. God makes a judgment. Ze yashpil, v'ze yarim. He says, this one I will humble, and this one I will lift up. Bo ura'eh, come and see. Yesh osher shehu oseh ra leba'alav. I want to show you now, says the Midrash, that there are certain cases that we know about in the Torah, that there was a wealthy person, and really he thought the wealth was his own personal wealth. He could do with it whatever he wanted. But shehu oseh ra leba'alav, but it did bad for the owners. For yesh osher, and this wealth, she'oseh tov leba'alav, it does good for the owners. Oseh ra leba'alav, it does bad for the owners. Ze oshro shel Korach, this is the wealth of Korach. Shehu haya ashir mikol Yisrael. Korach, in the story between Korach and Moshe, if everybody recalls the story, he wanted to be the Moshe of the generation, and he was the wealthiest amongst all the Jewish people. Okasiv, and it's written in Mabidbar over there, Tet Zayin Lamed Gimel, Vayeduhem v'chol asher lahem chaim sho'ela. You know what happened to Korach and his followers? God took them and he put them down, and off they went, all of them, alive. They were swallowed up into Sha'ul. They were swallowed up into the world of hell. We know the story that they contested the rights to leadership. Korach wanted the rights to leadership, and he told Moshe he's not entitled to the rights. And Moshe said, well, let's bring our pans the next day and we'll offer up a fire offering to God, and whoever offering is accepted, so we'll know this is what God wants. He wants this person to be the leader. And so Korach had his, and God and Moshe had his, and when Moshe did his, everything worked out nicely. And at that point in time, the earth opened up, and Korach and his followers were swallowed up, and all of his wealth was worth nothing. Everything he'd worked towards. So he was wealthy just a few moments ago, and just a few moments later, he lost it all. Here's another proof. This is the wealth of Haman, the evil Haman, who was at the time of the Purim story. Shene'emar, like it says a pasuk in the Megillah Esther, Vayesaper lahem Haman es kavod ashro. One moment, Haman was telling over to everybody around him about the honor of his wealth. He was telling his wife, he was telling his friends, he was telling over how wealthy he is. He's got 10 sons and he's got everything, and I'm the second in command, and the king just loves me, and he's going to make me the next king, and I'm the greatest that there is. Uksiv. And then what's written not so long afterwards? V'talu oto ve'es banav ala eitz. And they hanged him and his sons on the tree. Look at the fate of Haman, the wicked Haman. At one moment he thought he was the wealthiest. He thought he had everything. He thought the king loved him. He thought life was just a big joke. He was the ultimate of all society. People should bow down to him. And God forbid, Mordechai is not going to bow down to him. The Jewish people aren't going to bow down to him. What a terrible calamity. He's the greatest thing on earth. Look at him. He's an absolute idol himself. He's so great with all of his wealth. And how did he end up not so long afterwards? It didn't take long. He made a wrong move. And Achashverosh saw his wrong move. Looked like perhaps he was interested in Achashverosh's wife, Esther, at the time. And he had fallen on the sofa or the bed. And Achashverosh had walked in and said, I can't believe it. This is the man that Esther is telling me about, who was ready to kill the Jewish people. And now he wants my wife as well. Ridiculous. Off with his head. At that point in time, he was, of course, he was killed and he was hanged. V'shehu tov le'va'alav. So this is the case of people who we see, they didn't succeed with their wealth. They didn't know how to use their wealth correctly. They thought they were everything. They thought they had everything, like many people today. The wealth increases, and they wear more and more expensive suits, and they drive fancier and fancier cars, and it's 2 cars, and it's 3 cars. Look at me, everybody. Look at what I've got, everybody. And perhaps sometimes, unfortunately, we see even they might be on Twitter, and they might be on Instagram. Look at me, everybody. I have 25 million people who follow me. I have all this and more, and all the gold. Look at me. And they've got pictures with beautiful cars that they stand next to me. Look what I've got, they say. Look at me. Look at me. But when they're not giving of their wealth, what is there to look at? At what God has given you? God gave you that. God gave you arms and legs, gave you a head to think, gave you brains. He gave you organs in your body to be healthy so that you could experience life. And you come along and say with such arrogance that it's all yours. Nothing is yours. This is the wealth that exists because God has given it in his kindness. However, you could have that wealth also, and you could use it for good, in which case the wealth is truly yours. V'shehu tov le'ba'alav. It's good for its owners. Ze osro shel Jehoshaphat. This is the wealth of King Jehoshaphat. Shneimar, as it says in Divrei Hayomim in the book of Chronicles, Vayihi le'Jehoshaphat oshtev v'kavod larov. That Jehoshaphat had wealth and honor in abundance. And what was his situation? What happened? Vayizak Jehoshaphat v'Hashem azaro. That Jehoshaphat cried out to God, and God helped him because he used his wealth correctly. V'yesh Gevurah. Now listen to this. The Midrash continues and says, you should know something. Whatever we're talking about in the world, there is a concept of it for good and a concept of bad. And we can choose to use it as we wish. And since it's talking about Gevurah now, which is strength, you can think about the concept of good and bad, that Gevurah, for example, can be used in the concept of physical Gevurah, of actual strength, of might, can be used to bully somebody, punch him about and have fun at his expense and laugh. Or you can use Gevurah to protect the person who's being bullied, to knock out the bully. Depends what the situation is as to whether we're using something for good or bad. And so during the time that we're talking about right now, Sefiras HaOmer, when we're talking about the counting of the Omer, we try to master all of our midot. We're trying to master our kindness, and we're trying to master our strength and our beauty and all these things. These are all attributes that when we don't use it correctly, go to the side of bad. But when we use it correctly, they go to the side of good. So let's take an example of Gevurah. Gevurah is strength. Shehi tova leva'aleha. It's good for its owners. Yes, v'yesh shehi ra'a leva'aleha. And there is a Gevurah which is bad for its owners. Tova leva'aleha. What does it mean that it's good for its owners? Ze David. Here's an example of David HaMelech, King David. Shekosuf. It's written. Hika Sha'ul ba'alafav v'David b'revivosav. That Shaul would strike in the thousands, and David would kill in the tens of thousands. King David was a successful warrior. King Saul would kill thousands, but King David will kill tens of thousands of the enemy. People who were not good, people who were out to kill him. He needed to protect himself, and he did so, and he killed the enemy. Umisham ahevuhu kol Yisrael. And in fact, on the contrary, when he killed all of these people, the tens of thousands, the entire Jewish people came to love King David. Shneimar, like it says a verse in Shmuel, V'kol Yisrael v'Yehuda ohev es David. All Yisrael and Judah loved David. Now, Ra'a leva'aleha, zo Gevurah so shel Goliath. When we speak about a Gevurah which is bad for its owners, this is like the strength of Goliath. Shehayahu made umecharev. Because how did he use his strength? He used his strength to stand, to insult, to shame, to put down. Umehayalo, and what was his end result? Shemeis kekelev. He died like a dog. Shneimar, like it says a verse in Shmuel. Vayiru aplishtim ki meis giboram vayanusu. That the Philistines saw that their hero had died, and they all fled. He was no hero. He was a dog. He used his strength in order to kill somebody, just to simply show how strong he was. He was mighty. He was big. He had everything going for him in the power of his physical body. Look at me, everybody. Look how strong I am. And if you're not careful, I'll beat you all up. And that was the message of Goliath, of Goliath. But it took just a stone that hit him in the right place or the wrong place, however you look at it. And as it hit him, his life was over. He was worth nothing. With all of his strength and his power, one stone struck him in the head, and he lost consciousness and died. V'yesh chochma tova leva'aleha. Now we're talking about different aspects again that are good and bad for the owners. So there's a wisdom that's good for its owners, and there is a bad that is for its owners. What do we mean when there's a good wisdom for its owners? Yeshua. If you think about the story of Yeshua, you'll see over there a good. It says in the verse of Yeshua ben Nun male ruach chochma, that Yeshua ben Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom. What is comparable to? He's comparable to this jug that gives water, that irrigates the entire state, the entire country. Now everybody is praising the jug. One person said to these people, Shabchu lamayan shemaspik lazeh. You got it wrong. Stop praising the jug. Praise the water. Praise the well springs that gives of its sustenance for this person. And the person is only a channel. Yeshua was only a channel for the wisdom. All the Jewish people were receiving the goodness of Yeshua's wisdom. So they came along and they said, we must praise wisdom. And somebody, a clever fellow, came along and said, don't praise wisdom. Praise where the wisdom comes from, which means praise the water, the source itself, which means praise God. Yeshua only has his wisdom because of God. It's not that Yeshua is the great giant of wisdom. It's that he is the receptacle that has received the wisdom from God and is able to give it over to everybody else. And so they would praise Yeshua. And they would praise Yeshua that he would irrigate all the Jewish people with his wisdom. So they said to him, Shibchu Moshe, praise Moshe, don't praise him. Because it says over there, Sheneemar, Ki samach Moshe es yadav, that Moshe placed his hands upon Yeshua and he gave him of his spirit. And of course, his own spirit comes from God himself, which means Yeshua received his wisdom from Moshe. So if you want to praise the concept of wisdom, stop thinking that wisdom is his. Wisdom was from Moshe, and Moshe gave over the wisdom to Yeshua. Ra'a livaleha. Now, what does it mean when we speak about bad for its owners? Ze Bilaam. This was Bilaam. He had bad wisdom. Shnei Malak, it says, Nu'um shomea imre ekel ume hayalo. Says the one who hears the words of God. Now, he spoke about himself as if he's a great prophet. Listen to me, everybody. I'm a great man. Ume hayalo. And what was his end result? Says in Bamidbar Lamed Aleph Chet, V'es Bilaam ben Beor hargu becharev. And Bilaam ben Beor, they killed him with the sword. Well, what was his wisdom worth? He spoke to God. He was so great. He had powerful words. Lekak ne'emar. And so it says, Oshe shamuli ba'alav l'raso. There is a wealth which is guarded for its owners for his bad. So here we see at the end of this seif of this paragraph of the Midrash Rabbah that we were talking about the concept of charity. And we said that when a person does charity, he's not the charity, he's not the money, and he's not the person who made the money. All he is ultimately is this vessel that God chose to bless with wealth through whatever he did. He invested wisely. He took upon himself a career that was successful. He opened up a supermarket. And people supported him and all these different things. But ultimately, everything came from God. People didn't have to support him. When he opened the supermarket up, somebody very important could have come to the supermarket and caught him out and said, your meat is terrible. And he told people the message, and nobody bought meat from him, and he never met with success in his supermarket. Now, how did he meet with success in his supermarket? Because he did the right things. That's the first thing. He used his wisdom correctly. He studied what he needed to do if he did so, or he just was a great business person and he managed to put it all together. Whatever it is he did the right things. But with that, it was God's blessing that brought him to wealth. On the other hand, we have many people who are also successful business people who also have degrees, and they tried to start supermarkets and they tried to start businesses and nobody supported them. And so their poverty is not because they didn't try. Their poverty is because God said, at this point in time, I'm not going to allow the wealth to come through. And there'll be people who will watch the video and say, you're crazy. Everybody knows when you work hard, you get money. When you don't work hard, you don't get money. Well, if you work for minimum wage, you can work extremely hard all day long for 12 hours a day and get paid the same amount as if you worked just generally throughout the day and did very little. Because since you were at work and you did the basics, you get paid. And if you work very hard, you get paid the same amount. Working hard does not make a person any more wealthy. What makes a person more wealthy is the blessing of God. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah and we're davening hard, all of a sudden we become big tzaddikim, we're big righteous people on Rosh Hashanah, and we're reading the words with big kavanah as if we understand what they're saying. But after Rosh Hashanah, it's as if we forgot it. And what do we say on Rosh Hashanah? We say that, God, you are already preparing for us the money that we'll have for the next year. What? How can it be? Such a thing. I know I'm smart and I can generate as much money as I want. But the Torah says no. God says on Rosh Hashanah, I'm planning for you how much money you're going to have. You're going to do things. Yes, you're going to open up the business. You're going to do the work. You're going to do all sorts of things. You're going to come into contact with people, whatever it is. But I'm the one that's going to bestow the money you're going to receive. You are going to receive $100,000 this year. And the other fellow will receive $500,000. And the other one will receive 20 million. And another will receive 500 million. It is things that are decreed for a person on Rosh Hashanah. And then when a person puts his business into effect, God allows the money to channel through as if to look like it's completely natural, but it's not. On the other hand, the other fellow who's only going to earn $20,000 for the year, he has a plan also, and he works hard as well. And he puts in all the effort, and he puts in the same effort as the other guy. But his friends don't refer people to him, or the friends speak badly, or perhaps even his own family speak badly about him. They say, don't buy from my son. Don't buy from my brother. He's known to do X, Y, and Z. People don't buy all of a sudden. And he doesn't make any money. But the next year, he becomes a millionaire because somebody finds out that the brother was telling a lie. And they say, how could you have spoken that way about your brother? And now I'm going to dafka support your brother. And I'm going to tell my friends dafka to support him also. And as a result, he becomes wealthy. The wealth and the poverty are not in our hands. They're in the hands of Hashem. Now, what is in our hands? How are we going to use this wealth? Are we going to use it to help other people, like we've spoken about for already an hour? Or are we going to use it for our own selves? And we're going to tell people, I earned this income. It's mine. It belongs to me. I worked hard for it. Why do I have to give you anything? I need a new home in Hawaii. I need a vacation on the latest cruise ship. I need to go to a restaurant, the best, twice a week. I need 4 computers, 6 new phones, and 3 new cars. I need all sorts of things. Well, of course, if the person legitimately needs it, he needs it like we spoke before. But don't forget, the poor person could need these things as well. The difference is he can't obtain them because he doesn't have the money, but he still needs it also. Well, we have to care for each other on the same level. Your brother must live together with you. You've got to be interacting so that he's able to keep up with life just like you want to keep up with life. If you want the good things for yourself, then want the good things for the other too. And look out for the other person's need. If the other person says that he needs something to eat, then we give him something to eat. We don't give him something to drink. If he says he needs something to drink, we don't give him food at that point in time because he really needs something to drink. If he says he needs clothing, then it's clothing that he needs. And if he says he needs a phone, it's a phone that he needs. Whatever the person needs, we need to help him to get and obtain the things that he needs. If we have the means to help, our duty is to do everything to help. Because ultimately the wealth and the poverty are not something in our control, but rather it stems from a higher source that God blesses each one of us with a certain amount of wealth each year. And we are commanded to use that money in order to help each other, according to the mitzvah that we just read at the beginning of the shiur, brought down from the Chumash. Now, what exactly is this galgal? We spoke about the galgal, this wheel, this life, a wheel. What does it all mean? Well, in another section, shortly after what we've just read, in Shemot Rabbah 31, and this is now Seif or however we understand it, seif, paragraph, Yud Dalet 14, it says over there, davar acher. Here's another meaning of this whole concept of charity and helping others. Es ha'ani imach, the poor man with you. How do we help the poor man to be with us? It says, Ki Elokim shofet ze yashpil v'ze yarim. You'll remember we read these words before. That's okay. The words mean the same thing, and what the Torah often does is to use the same expression in order to help us understand another concept. It says over there, a verse in Tehillim, in the book of Psalms written by King David, that God judges. God is the one in charge. Which God, by the way? Interesting. Anybody who pays particular attention to this word will notice that the word is Elokim, God, but not Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, not the four-letter words. Not God in an aspect of mercy, but God in an aspect of judgment. God makes a judgment. And we know that Elokim is the same gematria, numerical value, as the word HaTeva, which is 86. And this is because Elokim relates to nature. Whenever God reveals himself in the world, in nature, like that we don't really realize that God is there, the name Elokim is used. So, for example, this is the issue of, let's say, the scientist. The scientist looks at the world and he sees a flower. So he says, look at the beautiful flower and how it grows. But the insightful person, the spiritual person, the knowledgeable person beyond this doesn't see a flower from nature. He sees a flower from God. Because hidden behind the flower is God. This is HaTeva. This is the nature. But behind the HaTeva is Elokim, which is exactly the same numerical value. Ze yashpil v'ze yarim, says the God of nature, which means when we look at nature, when we see ourselves interacting with each other, we tend to think that we're in control. But the Pasuk doesn't say that. The Pasuk says God in nature is in control. Everything looks natural, but behind the scenes, God is working. It's kind of like if we to give an example and say, imagine, for example, taking a look at these dolls, and many people have these dolls, puppets, which are controlled by strings. And if you look on YouTube, you can probably find some lovely clips which show with the person who's videoing. So the person videoing it shows the doll, the puppet, and the puppet's moving about, and the hands and the arms, everything's moving about. And anyway, if you pay particular attention, you'll notice that the doll is attached to strings, and there's somebody else who's holding the strings. Now, the person who's holding the strings starts to move with some wooden instruments, and this creates something that the puppet below starts to move about. But the person who's looking at the puppet tends to think that the puppet is all working by itself. But he doesn't realize that there are strings attached to the puppet with some wooden levers that the owner of the puppet is moving about, causing the puppet to move. Well, this is how nature is working as well. Nature works in a way where God is hiding himself behind the scenes. Just like the master who owns the puppet is able to move things about, but the person who's looking down at ground level thinks the puppet is moving by itself, so too does the person in this world see nature or money matters or anything as what we're doing. We're involved in it. We're making the success. We're losing out. We're the one that made the mistake. We did this. We did that. The reality is there is a super higher force which is controlling everything around us that makes things look a certain way. If we look with our physical, natural eyes, all we will see is the puppets moving about, and we will think that's what it's about. But when we look with our spiritual eyes, then we will see that there is a higher force that's causing all of this to happen in the world. So God is making that one person is Yashpil, and another person is Yarim. He pulls down the one person, and he lifts up the other. When the person suddenly loses his wealth, this is like the puppeteer, and he causes a reaction, and the puppet falls down. It wasn't the puppet that did anything conscious to make the thing happen. The puppet was just moving about as it usually does. That's what it does. The person is moving, the puppeteer is moving the puppet, and that's what it does. Now that the puppeteer moved the puppet in a certain way, it fell and collapsed. The Zeyarim. And then God takes the other one, and he brings him up, and he gives him wealth. But we think it's all our own doing. Lema domeh ha'olam hazeh. Listen to this beautiful teaching from the Midrash. To what is this world comparable? Legalgal, to a wheel, a water wheel, a Ferris wheel, shebegina, that is in the garden. Klei cheres shebo hatachtoinim, oilim meleim. You have the buckets the pottery bucket, which is on the bottom, and it comes up and it's full with all the water that it gathered as it was down on the bottom in the well. It was it went down and it gathered up all the water and it brought the water to the top. Now the ones that were on the top start to go down on this wheel to the bottom, and they're all empty. Well, obviously, the wheel had turned over and the water had spread out where it was necessary, and the water was taken, and now, of course, as it goes to the top, it's empty. And so as it's coming down again, it's empty, and then it goes down to the bottom, but as it goes down, it fills itself up with water, and then it comes to the top again. So too, a person who is wealthy today is not wealthy tomorrow. And not a person who is poor today is poor tomorrow. The person who is wealthy today is not necessarily wealthy tomorrow. And the person who's poor today is not necessarily poor tomorrow. Lama? Why? Because there is this wheel in the world. There is this water wheel. The wheel is moving around all the time. Interesting. Those who pay attention to the teachings of Kabbalah will also know that there is a book written by the Arizal, which is known as the Shar al-Gilgulim or the Sefer al-Gilgulim, whichever books you want to study from, the book of reincarnations or the gate of reincarnations. And the word for reincarnation is Gilgul, also related to the same idea, wheel. There's something more going on in how we are working, whether it's from lifetime to lifetime or whether it's from day to day in this world. But there's a galgal. There's a constant movement of things going up and down. There's a constant movement. And in fact, even in Hebrew, the word for money, one of the words to describe money is zuzim, zuz. In modern Hebrew, the word zuz, we know it means to move. We talk about zuz, 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 move, we say, move, because money is moving all the time. Money cannot stay constant. Money can never settle down for a second. Money has to constantly move. Well, if it's going to move, let it at least move from a wealthy man to a poor man to help the poor man, so that when the poor man becomes wealthy, he'll also be able to help the poor man who was wealthy before. He can help him now. There's a constant movement that's taking place. The wheel is turning around and around. One moment it's full with the water when it's at the bottom, and then it comes to the top. It has to do something. The money spills out, and the bucket becomes empty, and it moves down again. Now listen to these words here. How do we know this? From a verse in the Torah. Ki biglala davar hazeh, says the pasuk over there in Devarim. Go and check it up. Tet vav yud. Over there it says, because of this thing, God is blessing you, or whatever the verse says over there. You can check it out. I'm sorry, I don't have it written here in front of me. Because of this thing, this is what it is. But the pasuk doesn't say ki ba'avur hadavar hazeh. This thing of that you're doing charity, it's relating to charity again. In another section in Devarim, it's relating to charity. And it says, because of this thing of charity that you're doing, I'm going to bless you in various things. But the word chosen in the Chumash, which is very precise, is not ki ba'avur hadavar hazeh. It doesn't say because of this thing. It says ki biglal hadavar hazeh. Biglal, because in the sense of galal. Galal is related to the word gilgul. It means when we do good for others, then the good comes back to us. And it happens at some point in time. It might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow. It might take many, many years. But the good returns at some point in time. There's an effect, there's a cause and effect happening. And therefore, if we have wealth, we have to remind ourselves that the wealth is there to help others. It's not there for ourselves, because at some point in time it can be emptied out. And if it's emptied out in the wrong direction, it will remain empty. Omar Rabbi Acha, said Rabbi Acha, Galgal hu ba'olam. There is a galgal, there is a wheel, a water wheel. Shneimar, like it says, Mezare risha'im melech chacham vayashev alehem ofan. That the king, the wise king, spreads out the wicked, and he returns upon them the ofan. Well, what does it mean, ofan? He returns upon them an ofan. Ve'ein ofan ele galgal. Ofan is a galgal, is a wheel. So the wise king takes the wicked and he throws them out, and he brings them to the ofan. He brings them to the world of Gilgul. He brings them to the world to understand that if they're going to be evil, I'm going to throw you into the world of the Galgal. I'm going to throw you into that world where you will see that though you thought you had, you will realize now that you do not have anything. Shneimar, like the pasuk says, Vayasar es ofan markavoisav. That when the Egyptians were attacking the Jewish people as they went through the Red Sea, the Yam Suf, that as they were pursuing, that God removed the ofan from their chariots. What is ofan? The wheel. So we see over there that the word ofan means a wheel. God removed the wheels. And indeed, of course, the mystery of the whole story of the Exodus relates to the mystery of the wheel, because everything about it is the chariots and the wheels. The chariots are with an owner inside, commanding the chariot in a certain way, and the wheels that keep on moving this chariot in a certain way. And those who know a little bit of Kabbalah know that the secrets of Torah are hidden within what's called the Maaseh Merkava, the deeds, the actions, the happenings of the Merkava, of the chariot. The chariot is a place which exists in the spiritual world of godliness, where God, so to speak, is sitting in the chair of the chariot with the wheels, and he is making the world go round in a certain way. He is bringing the world to a certain conclusion. The world is running in a certain way. And a person who wants to see what is happening, and he engages in the secrets of Torah to be able to perceive the actual happenings above, is said to enter into the Maaseh Merkava. He enters into a world whereby he witnesses and sees the chariot in operation. He sees how God is managing the world through the concept of wheels. Things are turning around all the time. The wealthy can become poor. The poor can become wealthy. The weak person can become strong. The strong person can become weak. Ashrav, happy is he. Happy and praiseworthy is the person whose hand is open to the poor. See what's written in Mishlei. Osher v'rash nifgoshu. Beautiful words. The poor, which rich man and the poor man meet. Ose kulam Hashem. Hashem makes them all. What's the verse teaching us? The verse is teaching us that God brings the wealthy and the poor person together. They stand right next to each other. Don't think that they're separated. Hashem makes them all. Hashem makes the wealthy man. Hashem makes the poor man. Everybody is a creation of God. And everybody who has is because God has given. And if a person doesn't have, it is because God has withheld. Why does he withhold? Because he wants there to be a world of Galgal. He wants there to be a world of give and take all the time, a movement whereby we are all connected to each other. And the wealthy man stands by the poor man. He doesn't insult him. They stand next to each other. They're meeting. And the wealthy gives to the poor. And the poor man stands next to the wealthy and he says, thank you for giving me. And we can stand together. We can live together in the world. And it could be one day that the wealthy man loses something and the poor man happens to have more. And suddenly the poor man meets up, who's now the wealthy man, meets up with the wealthy man who's now the poor man, and he gives to him. He'ani kana chayei haolam hazeh. It's also written, Rashve ish terachim nifkashu, me'ir einei shnehim. The poor man and the man who is, let's say, broken, which means in the sense that he will be broken, really, through his relationship, meet. And Hashem opens the eyes of both. Hashem opens the eyes of both. Why? Because Hashem opens the eyes even to the person who is broken, who had once, and at this point in time God says to him, look, I can make you just like he. And he opens the eyes and he makes him to see that he's no better than the poor man he had met before. The poor man acquires this world. And together, when they work together in the way that they're supposed to be, then the wealthy man acquires the world to come. The wealthy man helps the poor man in this world. And when he helps him in this world, then the wealthy man gets the world to come as well. Now, since the poor man has been helped in this world, but he was poor, he also acquires the world to come because he was poor and he suffered. He suffered from his poverty. So together, when they work as a team, both of them acquire both worlds. Now, if the poor man comes along, he says, yeah, can you please help me? And the Balabait doesn't want to give to him. The wealthy man doesn't want to give to him. Hashem made both of them. מי שעשה את זה, עשיר, הוא עתיד לעשות עני. The one who made this one wealthy, in the future will now make him poor. ומי שעשה את זה עני, and the one who made this person poor, הוא עתיד לעשות עשיר, he's going to make him wealthy. Why? Because עשיר ורש נפגשו, עושה כולם השם. That the wealthy and the poor meet, Hashem makes them both. He determines at one point in time what he will do. He will make one wealthy, he will make the other poor. They will meet, he will switch over. The poor man will become wealthy, the wealthy man will become poor. Why? Because galgal ba'olam, there is a wheel in the world. Ein lecha midah kashem min ha'aniyot. This teaching comes to a bit of a conclusion here that says that there is no worse thing in the world than poverty. Shekol mi shehu metugdak ba'aniyot. Any person who has found himself in this terrible situation of poverty, poverty means he just can't get on with his life. He doesn't have the means to buy the things that he needs. He doesn't have the means for education. He doesn't have the means for food, for garments. He doesn't have the means for food. And every day goes by and he keeps wondering, how will he survive the next day? Until when? 70 years, 80 years? Is this how he has to live his life? Lying on outside on the cement, and with a blanket over him, with a cup in front of him, please help me. For 70, 80 years, he must live his life this way, while somebody else is permitted to live his life in luxury, owning aeroplanes, owning jets, owning helicopters, owning 6 cars. And he celebrates his life throughout life. Sure, he has a hard life. I'm certain he has difficulties and problems in his life, but he's able to live. He's able to cope from one day to the next and not have to worry about buying the things that he needs to live. Will he have emotional tests? Of course he will have that. Will he have mental tests? Of course. Will he have family problems? Of course. But he'll be able to buy things and to live from day to day. But the poor man, not only can he not get on with his life ever, he can barely consider how to just get by each day. Until when? Until he's 80 years old and dies. What type of a life did he have? That he had to spend his entire life in a prison without anything throughout his entire life. And what did he do to deserve it? Nothing. So the Torah teaches us over here that poverty is considered to be the worst possible mitzvah in the world. Shekol mitzvah, ki'ilu devukim bo, as if there cleaves to him, kol yisurim sheba'olam. The poor man is in such a situation that it's as if all the afflictions in the world cleave to him. Uke'ilu ba'u alav kol hakalot shebemishnah Torah. And he feels, the poor man feels, as if all the curses in the book of Devarim apply to him. He looks at those curses, he says that this is me. This is what I'm going through every single day of my life. How can that be? V'amru Rabboseinu, and our teachers teach, Ilu niskabtu kol yisurim letzad echad. If all the afflictions of the world were put onto one side of the world, va'aniyos letzad echad, and poverty were to be put against all the afflictions of the world, ha'aniyos machras lekulam, poverty would outweigh them all. Lo tiyeh loy kaneshe. Now, the last part of the teaching over here in this paragraph goes on to the concept of lending out money for interest. And it says over here, with regards to lending out on interest, so not only are we talking about the mitzvah of tzedakah, of general charity, but we're talking about also the mitzvah of lending out to a person who needs, and you loan him the money so that he can survive. So over here it says that don't be like an interest that you're going to bother the person all the time and say, you owe me money, you owe me interest, come pay me back. Anybody, come and see, anybody who lends out money and he charges interest, he transgresses all the sins in the Torah. And he will not find anybody to ever say a good word about him. Here is what happens. A person who committed one sin in the Torah, and now he stands in front of Hashem on the day he dies. Everybody's going to have this happen to him. He dies, he leaves the world, and he confronts his maker. And here he is. He's going to have judgment day. And he committed a sin. What happens? HaMalachim undim, the angels stand by. Eilu melamdim zechut. Some of them are going to speak about him in a positive way and say he's a good guy. Ve'eilu melamdim chova. And there are going to be others who say, no, he's a bad guy. I'm sorry, he did certain things wrong. Shene'emar, like it says, Ra'ises Hashem Yoshev al Kisor. This is with regards to the prophet Yechezkel, who says that he saw, or this is Yeshayahu, sorry, this is Yeshayahu, I think, that he says, I saw Hashem sitting on his throne. V'kol tzva shamayim omdim al yamino usmolo. And I saw all the hosts of heaven standing on his right and on his left. We see over here that he was privy to seeing the angels standing next to God, so to speak, in a spiritual concept, not in a physical concept. Please, we're not referring to the angels with wings as we imagine them to be as these spiritual beings, but as a concept that he saw, he envisioned, and he's telling us in his own words what it was that he saw. He kind of saw these angels that were standing on the right and the left. What does it mean, the right and the left? It means on the right side to judge favorably, and on the left side in order to show the person's wrongdoings. But if a person lends to his fellow Jew and he charges interest, none of the angels will say any good thing about the person. Shene'emar, as it says, a pasuk in Yechezkel, the prophet Yechezkel, Baneshek nosan v'tarbis lakach v'chai lo yichyeh. This person is charging interest, and he's taking interest, and he's going to live, but he won't live. V'chol adam Yisrael shemalveh lachaveiro, and any Jew who lends out to his fellow Jew, v'eino notel ribet, and he doesn't take interest from him, ki'ilu kiyem kol mitzvahs, it's as if he fulfilled all the mitzvot of the Torah. What beautiful words. A Jew who lends to his fellow Jew is in need, whether it's $10, whether it's 100, whether it's a car that he has to lend him, the money for a car, whether he has to lend him, he can buy a home, all the more so, all these different things that this Jew needs help with. Then, such an individual, as if he fulfilled all the mitzvot of the Torah. Shechein David Omer, as King David says in Tehillim, Hashem mi yagur ba'olecha, God, who will live in your tent, uksiv, and it says, Kaspo lo nasan b'neshech, with his money, he never gave over for interest. Now this concludes the second teaching over here. In the Midrash Rabbah, as we've gone through some very beautiful sources. We began with the Chumash teaching us this great mitzvah to help a fellow Jew in need. And just remember this idea that when a Jew says, help me, we say to him, how much do you need? We come across, and what can we do for you? Because if we don't help him then, he's like a donkey, and a donkey with a big load on him. And if we take the donkey with the load and the load starts to waver, and you grab it and you push it back on again, the donkey will be okay. And the load will be okay. But if the load starts to fall and we say, what? Is the load falling? No, the donkey's still okay. This donkey can still stand up fine. There's no problem with it at all. And the load is still okay. Look, it's fine, everybody. You don't have to help him. Just tell him to get a good education. Just tell him to get a job. He's okay. And look, it's falling a little bit more. No problem. Get a job. It's okay. Get a better education. Here. Suddenly, the whole load falls. Well, when the load falls, it's a different story. When the load is falling, one person can help get the load back on again. When the load falls completely, when the donkey smashes to the ground, completely overwhelmed by the weight on its shoulders, even 5 people will be unable to lift up this donkey. You'll never get the donkey up again. The donkey will have broken its legs already. The burden on the donkey would have been smashed into pieces. There were glasses in it. There were ceramics in it. There were all sorts of things going on in the burden of the donkey. Whatever it was, it's smashed. It can never be repaired even. So let us not forget these beautiful words. And then as we take that into the Midrash, in the Midrashim that we learnt now together, the most important thing to remember is the mitzvah of helping. And to remember that the world is a galgal. The world is a Ferris wheel, a water wheel that goes into a well. And as it comes up from the well, having picked up the water, we're able to get from it. And then it goes right to the top, But what happens is it comes to the top, it either waters the ground around it, or somebody takes the water to use it, and it goes down again empty, and it goes back into the well, and it fills up again. So there's a constant movement here of filling up and becoming empty, filling up and becoming empty. So too the wealthy man who thinks that he's wealthy today may not be wealthy tomorrow. And as we've seen time and time again, you just have to go onto YouTube and watch these famous stories of great people who fell. Watch the great stories of great people who had nothing. How many came to America with small amounts of money, unable to do anything, and became multi-millionaires and successful people. And so the same happens to everybody in the world. The wealthy and the poor person are meeting all the time. Our duty, as with whatever we can, whatever we have, whatever we can do, is to help that person, whoever needs help. Our duty is not to insult. Our duty is not to denigrate and to speak badly about any person who is suffering, and not to in any way question them and to make a mockery of who they are and where they're at. Our duty is to see that this person is having a difficulty. The burden is becoming too much for them. And at that point in time, we take out of our pockets a coin. We take out 10 coins. We take out 1,000 and 100,000, and whatever it takes, to whatever degree we can, and we make a real difference in that person's life so that they can live together with us and we can enjoy our life and feel that the test that God gives us might be one thing, but at least we have the means to work through life and enjoy a full life in this world and to get through with the things that we need so that we can live. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this shiur. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet, our main site, www.lovingkindness.co. And since we're on the topic of tzedakah, I will use this opportunity to say that, my website and everything that I do is really only funded and helped by people such as yourself. I don't get any payment for doing any of these things, obviously, like many other people as well, but I love doing it. I love teaching, and I love to help people very often at no cost whatsoever. People often email me and I will respond to them, and I don't charge for that. And other people I do charge for because I have lessons that I charge for to try and make an income, but it doesn't always get me to my final goal in paying all my expenses. And so I use this opportunity as well, and I say to you, please consider becoming a member of my website, www.lovingkindness.co, as much as you can each month, because it makes a tremendous difference to me and literally gives me life so that I can live each day. And of course, I ask you, if you have enjoyed this video, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my video, because also as you subscribe and I get more subscribers, it gives me the opportunity to reach out even further and to further my goals in teaching Torah. Like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and get them involved in the activities that we're involved in on our site. Check out what we're involved in as soon as possible. www.lovingkindness.co. See you again soon. Bye-bye. Shalom, shalom.